In the last video, we saw how to create template graphs for multiple pieces of equipment in a single project, where the data for each piece of equipment resides in a separate folder. On large jobs, where we might have hundreds of VAV terminals, for example, we don't want to be creating those folders by hand. So here is a method by which the UT can automatically create such folders. Example job here contains a number of channels, and as is very often the case, they have naming that indicates their function. So the idea would be to create folders automatically given those names. The way to do it is to go to the channels root folder and use the new folders menu. That brings up a dialog, and in the dialog there is a selection mechanism which has a syntax that's explained on the right side of the screen here, but the easier way to demonstrate how the syntax works is to walk through an example with you. The database for this job contains both AC units and VAV terminals. So the VAV terminals are shown with typical names such as Trends VAVs Floor 3, or further at the top, Trends VAVs Floor 2, and so on. So the word VAV appears, the word VAVs or Floor 1, 2, 3 appear. So there's multiple ways of filtering out what we want to see in a different folder. In addition, the AC units themselves appear with the word ACU. So if we wanted to filter out ACU terms, we can do that by simply typing ACU, and we'll see at the right where the UT shows what folder name it would group these into. So for example, here we have ACU1, a little further down we have ACU2. All of those would end up in a folder called ACU. Or if we said VAVs, then all of the terms which contain the word VAVs would end up in a single folder called VAVs. Now naturally, it would be good if we could split out by floor or even by individual VAV zone rather than just by VAV. And depending on the syntax of the actual name that was given by whoever set up the database, that becomes more or less complicated. So if we want to split out each of the trends connected to, for example, VAV16, here's the way to do it. By the way, the underscores here are double underscores. It's not very easily visible, but that's what they are. So the way to find a trend like that, for example, would be to say VAV underscore underscore. I'm typing this. The next digit would be a number, a single number. As you can see up on the right here, a \D refers to a digit. So I would go \D, two more underscores, \D for two more digits. And now the UT recognizes each of these folders individually for each VAV terminal. If I say OK, I automatically get a number of folders, and each of these contains only those channels that are actually associated with that VAV terminal. And in stepping through, I can see that not all of them have the same number of channels exported. So some are complete, some are less complete. But this is a way to easily create folders automatically and to then be able to run template graphs that simply use the data in those folders. We're going to do one more example here. For large databases, it may actually be beneficial to make hierarchical folders. One way to do that obviously would be I could make a folder by hand and call it, this appears up here as channel folder 001. I could call it VAV terminals, and then manually drag these terminals into here, and then that way create a hierarchy. I'm not going to do that here, so I'll just hit the delete key. Instead, I'm selecting the folders, hitting the delete key. Instead, I'll bring up the folders icon again and start with a selection of just VAVs as we'd seen earlier. I'll say OK. Now I've created one folder that contains all the VAV data. I can go into that folder and again say new folders, So it brings up the same dialog again, but now only with the data in those folders. And now I could select, for example, VAV underscore underscore backslash D. That would be all the VAVs with their first index number. That's the floor number. So when I say OK, that means I've got the VAVs for floor 1, and I might change that to read floor 1, and floor 2 and floor 3. So now I've isolated them by floor. And once I've done that, I can further isolate them individually by the search term I used earlier. So I can go in here, say new folders, underscore, underscore, and then 2 digits. Now they'll be individually sorted. So here are the zones for the first floor. And I can repeat that, and since the UT remembers the search term I used earlier, all I have to do is hit OK and do that 3 times and get the same grouping on the other floors. So now I have hierarchical folder structure with VAVs, and then by floor, and then by individual VAV. That's not necessarily the best approach for every job, but in this way you can see that it's very easy to create a hierarchy for the various channels that they can be used for other analysis routines.